They were winning. The enemy was retreating, their lines breaking, their confidence collapsing. For a moment, it looked like history was repeating itself. Another victory. Another decisive win. But then, something changed. A single decision, a small movement. A position that should never have been abandoned. And within minutes, the battlefield transformed. From control to confusion. From order to chaos. What was almost a victory turned into one of the most critical moments in early history. Because what happened at the Battle of Uhud was not just about strength. It was about discipline and the cost of losing it. The story of Uhud begins where another battle ended. After the victory at Battle of Badr, the balance of power had shifted. Quraysh had lost key leaders. Their reputation had been shaken. And for them, this could not remain unanswered. They began preparing. Not a small response, but a decisive one. An army of nearly 3,000 men was assembled, equipped, organized, and driven by one objective: restore dominance. Among them were experienced fighters, cavalry units, and leadership determined to avoid another defeat. Meanwhile, in Medina, the Muslims prepared to defend. Initially, their numbers reached close to 1,000. But before the battle even began, around 300 withdrew. What remained was a force of roughly 700 fighters, fewer in number, facing a larger, prepared army. And now, the confrontation was inevitable. The battlefield was chosen carefully, at the base of Mount Uhud, just outside Medina. The positioning mattered. The mountain stood behind the Muslim forces, protecting their rear from direct attack. This meant the enemy could only engage from the front, or find another way around. And that possibility was already anticipated. A small but critical unit was placed on a nearby elevated hill. Around 50 archers, their role was clear: protect the flank, watch for any movement from behind, and most importantly, that do not leave the position. Not if the battle turns, not if the enemy retreats, not even if victory seems certain. Because that hill was not just a position, it was a shield. On the opposite side, Quraysh organized differently. Infantry formed the center, cavalry units positioned on the flanks. Waiting for opportunity, the stage was set. Every position mattered, and every decision would carry consequences. The battle began with controlled aggression. Lines advanced, forces met. The first clashes were intense, close combat, direct engagement, no distance between the fighters. At this stage, numbers should have made the difference, but they didn't. The Muslims held their ground, not just holding, but pushing. Step by step, they forced Quraysh backward. Pressure increased, formations tightened, momentum began to shift. Key fighters from Quraysh fell, and with each loss, something changed. Their structure weakened. Their advance slowed, then stopped, and then they began to retreat. Not fully at first, but enough to signal a turning point. On the battlefield, signs of victory became visible. The Muslims advanced further. Control of the field was within reach, and from many positions, it looked clear. The battle was already decided. But this is where everything changed. On the elevated hill, the archers were watching. From their position, they could see the battlefield below. They saw the retreat. They saw the Muslims advancing. And they saw something else: opportunity. Weapons left behind, spoils on the ground, a battlefield that looked finished. To many of them, the conclusion was obvious. The battle was over. Some hesitated. They remembered the instruction: do not leave your position, no matter what happens. But others believed the situation had changed. Victory was already achieved. The order, in their view, no longer applied. And then the decision was made. One by one, then in groups, many of the archers left the hill. They moved down toward the battlefield, toward what they believed was the end of the fight. But what they left behind, that was not just a position. It was an opening. From across the field, that opening was seen. Quraysh cavalry units, positioned and waiting, recognized the shift immediately. Where there had once been a guarded flank, there was now space. And in battle, space is opportunity. Without hesitation, the cavalry moved, fast, direct, decisive. They circled the hill, and then struck, from behind. The impact was immediate. The Muslims, focused forward, now faced an attack from the rear. At the same time, Quraysh forces in front regrouped. What had been a retreat turned into a renewed assault. Now, the battlefield had changed completely. From one direction, pressure. From another surprise attack, the structure began to break. Formations lost alignment. Communication became unclear. Units that had been moving together were now separated. Some turned to face the new threat. Others continued forward, and in that moment of confusion, control was lost. What had been organized became fragmented. What had been coordinated became reactive. The battlefield no longer had a single direction. It had multiple conflicts happening at once, and in that environment, the advantage shifted completely. By the time the fighting slowed, the outcome had changed. The earlier momentum was gone. The field that once looked controlled had become unstable. Losses were heavy. Around 70 of the Muslims were killed. Among them were individuals whose presence had shaped the early strength of the community. The emotional weight was significant. This was not a small setback, but it was not a total collapse either. Quraysh, despite regaining control of the battlefield, did not advance into Medina. They did not pursue complete destruction. Instead, the battle ended in disengagement. Both sides withdrew, but the meaning of what had happened remained. Because this was not just about who held the ground at the end. It was about how quickly that control had been lost. The impact of Uhud went far beyond the battlefield. For the Muslims, this was a moment of reflection. At Badr, victory had come against the odds. At Uhud, a different reality was revealed. Victory is not secured by momentum alone. It is maintained by discipline, by holding position, by following strategy, especially when success appears close. The lesson was clear. The cost of a single decision can spread across an entire battlefield. And once structure breaks, recovery becomes difficult. This experience reshaped how future battles would be approached. Greater emphasis on coordination, on maintaining positions, on understanding that a battle is not finished until it truly ends, because Uhud was not just a loss. It was a correction, a moment that forced clarity, and in doing so, that it strengthened what would come next. Some battles are remembered for victory, others for what they teach. Uhud is remembered for both, because sometimes the most important victories come after understanding defeat. If you want to follow the full story, from early to the rise of power, to the shaping of history, stay with the channel. There's much more ahead.